So Konstantin Kisin and Destiny just had a debate hosted by Pangburn Philosophy, or I think it's just called Pangburn now, but anyway, whatever. For some, this would have been a much anticipated event, not only for interest in topics on the debate agenda, but also because these two people have been public enemies after Konstantin condemned Destiny for his crass comments about Corey Comparator, the firefighter killed at a Trump rally by a bullet intended for Trump. Very unfortunate situation. So people may have been expecting a big clash between Kisin and Destiny on stage. Is that what we got? Kind of. For the first section of the debate, things were very hostile between them. Kisin clearly knew what he was getting into with this debate, and his demeanour and approach reflected that. How did each debater perform? Let's start with Konstantin. He communicated his ideas clearly, but did seem cautious and maybe nervous of Destiny's rhetorical skills and debate tricks. Kisin's cold, impatient demeanour revealed this possible apprehension, along with his constant attempts to assert control over the conversation, with scorn for Destiny's argumentation style and frequent calls for Destiny not to speak until Kisin had finished what he was saying. What Konstantin was asking for here was not unreasonable, but it seemed like his motivations for doing so were more than just to enhance the quality of the conversation, but also to protect his own image and not get steamrolled by Destiny. Destiny accused him of filibustering, which he was doing a lot, but I think that was less to do with him not having good arguments to make, and more to do with the fact that he knows Destiny can talk at 1,000 miles an hour, picking apart arguments even faster than they've been made. So the filibustering seemed like a way to give Kisin time to think of how to make his points, and maybe find his way to what he wanted to say by laying a path of words to lead him on to more, rather than just trying to run down the clock to avoid having to make an argument at all. Overall, he made his points fairly well, although maybe not as well as he typically does, and I think that was as a result of him going up against someone as verbally nimble as Destiny, the prospect of which maybe threw him slightly off balance and altered the approach he normally takes to these kinds of conversations. Konstantin is normally a pretty formidable debater after all. How did Destiny perform? Well, I think this debate is a good example of why people accuse Destiny of being a contrarian, of being a debate bro, deploying whatever rhetorical techniques he needs to win an argument. He does this thing in debates where he seems to pretend what his opponent has said is totally ridiculous and irrational, whether or not it is. He's granular and forensic with how he tackles claims, he demands evidence for every claim made, which is reasonable, but sometimes, and in this case, it seems like what lies behind the questions is dishonest and manipulative. Here are some areas from the debate where I think that's the case. When Destiny tried to nail down Konstantin on a definition of culture, and what about British culture has changed for the worse as a result of immigration, when Destiny indicated there's never really been a monoculture in any country, meaning no one should care if their culture's changed or eroded by immigration or whatever else, I suppose, and claimed that the fact that immigration figures in the last 30 or so years dwarf those of the last 2,000 years is arbitrary and meaningless. Destiny is obviously intelligent enough to know that there are very strong counter-arguments to these points he was making, but was relying on being so pedantic and granular that Kisin would struggle to make them, tripped up by all the verbal hurdles Destiny put in his way. Kisin called him out at one point for playing this trick of asking for a definition of a term, then to just poke holes in it once given, without offering an opposing definition of his own. And I think Destiny did do that at times, although generally, when prompted, he tends to give his own definitions in these types of conversations and defends them vehemently. So he probably would have done here too if prompted. I can't remember how much he was asked to define. I know Kisin asked him to define some stuff, but I can't really remember how much. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I know he's intelligent enough to understand the merits of Konstantin's positions, because Destiny's made arguments that validate them in the past. That was back when he was more of a centrist himself, rather than someone who just whinges about other people being centrists. So he was clearly being deliberately obtuse in this debate, providing evidence of ways our culture has been negatively affected as the result of mass migration is not necessarily that difficult, and I think Konstantin could have given better examples than he did, but it's also one of those things that people struggle to articulate. It's an experience people have that's hard to intellectualise and quantify. When it comes to cultural matters, people feel it in the air and observe it in their surroundings, and sometimes it's hard to put words to what that experience is like, given the abstract nature of things things like culture. And yet, it's still a very powerful feeling you get from being part of a culture and feeling the results of it being eroded or assailed. Destiny must know all this. He must know these things are hard to define, while still being real, and affecting people profoundly. So it seems like he seized on that conceptually fuzzy phenomenon of how we experience culture to use cynically as a weapon in this debate. I don't want to make out like culture is impossible to define. Konstantin gave a decent definition in the debate, and there's millennia worth of academic material analysing culture with quite precise and expansive arguments made. But still, culture exists in this strange space between the conceptual and tangible realms. It's not an object you can touch, and yet it's not simply an idea. It's a set of shared behaviours, beliefs, preferences, reference points, and more. It's information distributed among the individuals of a society that isn't codified anywhere. So that makes it hard to precisely define the elements of any one specific culture and leaves a linguistic opening for people to attack the whole concept in bad faith. We all understand what culture is really, even those who pretend not to for political or other reasons. Who won the debate then? I suppose, reluctantly, I would have to say Destiny did, whether or not he was on the right side of the arguments. Sometimes he was, but mostly he wasn't, in my opinion. He's a strong debater, and is able to twist information to his advantage very effectively. I used to be a fan of Destiny's, and I still enjoy some of his content, but I have now been enlightened to the type of person he is, after all his appalling public behaviour over the last year or two, and his disingenuousness in debates. I'm not condemning him utterly here, and saying he has nothing of value to offer the political space. It's still worth listening to some of what he's got to say. Many of his critiques on a range of things are very astute and deserve credit, including most of his critiques of Trump. But one should be aware of the fact that he's not always arguing honestly, and if you pay attention to the ways he argues, you can generally tell when he is and isn't being good faith. As for Konstantin, he probably made a mistake by being so hostile to begin with in this debate. That kind of demeanour just doesn't make people warm to you. A more relaxed, good-humoured approach would have served him well. He also could have done a bit more research into some of the claims he made, so he had the evidence to back them up. He should have known Destiny would ask for that, but I do think he's at least honest in the positions he espouses. After the initial hostility, eventually the pair were able to speak in a more civil and constructive way, which I think was more worthwhile for the audience, although that kind of civility is something Destiny kind of disavowed in his closing remarks. As far as I understand, he thinks civil debate doesn't achieve anything, or worse, just sanitises beliefs and people he's opposed to. He talked about that a bit in this instance, and has done in the past too, now disappointed with his civil performance in conversations with people like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro. Dissecting that is a topic for a different video, but following that line of things, did this debate achieve anything? I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think won the debate, and does that align with whose side you were on? Let me know in the comments. Leave a like if you want to, and subscribe for more videos on cultural and political topics. Bye.